Hello. Welcome to our debut episode of Accessible Futures Live. I'm your host, Samantha Van Scoik. For the purposes of a visual description, I'm a white woman with long curly brown hair wearing a black shirt. I serve as a vice president of real estate development, vice president of strategic partnerships at CIL. CIL is a nonprofit real estate developer founded by advocates and service providers who knew that people and families thrive best when they have a place to call home and are fully included in the community. For over 45 years, CIL has served as an ally to care providers to navigate the complexities of the real estate market and make those homes in the community a reality. We do this by securing 100% financing for the project, managing any necessary renovation or new construction, and leasing it back to the provider over a long-term capital lease. The thing that makes us different from other developers or investors is that at the end of the lease, we donate the home back to the provider. And if you are interested in learning more about what we do and how we do it, I encourage you to check out our website at www.cil.org. Now we can get into why we're here today. So Accessible Futures Live has been an idea that's been percolating kind of in the back of my mind for a while now. I wanted a space where we could explore specific topics related to accessibility, related to housing, and I thought short form interviews could be a really cool format for that. And we had the opportunity to crowdsource ideas for this first season from the Anchor Housing Task Force. And so I just want to shout out, say thank you to Anchor for giving us that chance, and anybody who gave us ideas. They were super helpful. And if any of our viewers have ideas, we'd love to hear them. So please drop them in the comments below or at the link that we're going to post in the comments too. One quick note about accessibility. We are so pleased to have Interprenet here today to provide live ASL interpretation. And depending on what platform you're viewing us on, you will also have the ability to turn on captions. However, we're always open to feedback on how we can make something more accessible. So don't hesitate to let us know how we can improve. And today we are joined by Dr. Julie Eshelman, who I had the pleasure of becoming fast friends with at the 2024 ARC National Convention. Shout out to the all-in crew. And today we're going to talk assistive technology. Julie, thank you for being here. And to start us off, can you tell us a little bit more about your background and what drew you to the field of assistive tech?
Sure. It's great to see you again, and thanks for having me. I'm excited for us to have this chat. My background is kind of a mix of research, policy, and hands-on work in disability inclusion. So I started as a special education teacher. I became a behavior analyst, and then I transitioned into research and consulting to drive some more systems level changes. So my interest in assistive technology really grew when I saw how it could unlock independence and autonomy for disabled people, and especially disabled people who are living in settings that are inherently very high support and therefore difficult to carve out moments of independence sometimes. So I saw how much it could give people more autonomy, and that it's a tool that gives people dignity and choice and opportunity when it's done well. So that got me very interested in systems changes for assistive technology.
Love it. Love it. Before I ask you the next question, one more housekeeping note. If any of our viewers have questions as we move through this conversation, please know we are on a 30-second delay. So we ask that you drop those questions in the comments as soon as you have them, and we'll try to get to the questions at the end of our conversation. So Julie, what is exciting to you about current advancements in assistive tech?
I love that question. So I think there are a couple of things. I think the growing intersection of mainstream and assistive technology is really exciting. Things like smart home devices and AI-powered accessibility tools coming on mainstream devices are really blurring the lines between what is assistive and what is just a normal tool now with lots of features and functions, which is making technology more usable in more ways for everybody, including people with disabilities. So I think that's really exciting. I also think that the potential for automation in the home and remote access really gives disabled people more control over their environments. So whether it's adjusting lighting or being able to unlock doors and open doors or communicating in new ways, I think all of those are really empowering advancements in terms of assistive tech.
Cool. What do you see as like some of the biggest challenges that people face when they're trying to access or adopt an assistive tech? And how can providers kind of help people overcome those challenges?
So I think there were a couple of core barriers and challenges that people come to when talking about accessing and adopting assistive tech. I think the first is cost and funding pathways. There are a lot of great technologies that exist, but funding is really a maze. What you're allowed to spend things on and what kinds of devices fit into the categories that insurance companies or Medicaid and Medicare have determined are assistive and not mainstream, makes it really challenging for people to access the money they need to get the tools that they want. So I think providers can really help by advocating for more sustainable funding models and supporting users to make it all the way through the process, and then also advocating for a broader definition of what is assistive technology. Another big barrier is lack of awareness and training. People do not know the art of what's possible when you have the right tools for the right tasks. Yeah. And I think even when they do, they may not get the training that they need. So then they don't get the full usefulness of that tool. So my big push is generally that providers should focus on coaching, not just the installation piece. It's not just a plug and play and then leave it. There's a lot of coaching that has to happen to truly integrate a tool into somebody's life. And then that leads me, I think, to the last one, which is technology abandonment is tough and it's expensive, which is why there are so many funding barriers, because it's very tricky. If the device is not the right fit, people stop using it. So I think that customization component of assistive tech and ongoing support are really critical. Like I said before, the right tool for the right task at the right time still won't really be a good match for someone if they're not really supported to integrate using that tool in their daily routines.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people can connect through stories, right? Like, and so maybe you could share a success story where assistive technology has really improved the quality of somebody's life.
Oh, I'd love to. Yes. I think one of my favorite stories is about a young man who lives in a care home who doesn't communicate verbally. And he would sometimes carry around like a printed keyboard on paper and point to letters to spell words and sentences out to people, which you can imagine is incredibly tricky for a communication partner to follow long streams of letters to put together words and sentences and whole thoughts. So it really made communication pretty challenging. And as a result, he wasn't really able to share much about himself with the people who were supporting him and the people in his care home and make relationships with people. So the assistive technology team at Leonard Cheshire, which is the people who run the home, started trying out different high-tech and low-tech things for him and landed on a device that has a small screen and a keyboard so that he can type his messages in whatever time it takes him to type it. And then people can read the entire thought that he wants to communicate. And that has been entirely life-changing, not just for him, but for his staff. Like he got to tell them he used to be a painter and he used to be in these community advocacy organizations. And, you know, he's got grandkids and he got to tell them all of these things and nobody had any idea. And so he feels so much closer and has such higher quality relationships, not just with the people who are supporting him, but with the people he lives with and shares a home with and has, you know, a lot of common space with. So that's been a complete game changer for him.
Yeah,
and I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, no, that's great. Like along those lines, what emerging technologies are there? Specific technologies we should be paying attention to? What's, you know, or is it very custom to the person?
No. Well, I mean, I think the tool has to be customized to the person, but I think that there is so much potential with AI powered accessibility tools. I think AI is going to really broaden the range of, for example, recognizable speech so that speech to text and text to speech works better for people who have speech differences, and real-time sign language translation when there is not a translator available and you need to communicate with someone who does not speak sign language or who does not speak. I think that, you know, AI has some really good applications there. And one that I come in contact with the most that I think is going to be a game changer too is that word recognition, especially when it's integrated into AAC devices, because often it's pretty effortful for people to type out what they'd like to say to someone. And as they're typing it, you know, when you're typing on your iPhone or on your Android phone, and words that it recommends that it thinks you're typing will pop up and you can tap on them. That really reduces the effort that it takes for somebody to communicate. And it also makes it so much faster, which gives them more communication opportunities because people don't have to have all the time in the world to wait for a reaction from the person. So I think that's a really big deal. Another one that I think is pretty exciting that we should be watching pretty carefully is the wearable technology and smart fabrics, those kinds of things, because they are being created to give real-time feedback for people who have sensory or mobility needs or other health conditions, which can really improve how people with complex support needs are supported, because it will really give people the data that they need to be more proactive and prevent healthcare issues rather than waiting for a healthcare issue to occur and then having to treat that health condition. So I think that that can actually really change the way we support disabled people entirely, which is kind of awesome.
Wow. I haven't heard of smart fabric before. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
This question kind of references an earlier question, but it expands it a little bit. So what role, in addition to the service providers, what role do caregivers and family members play in ensuring like a successful adoption of an assisted technology?
Yeah, I mean, providers and caregivers and families are the bridge between technology and real life usability. A device is really only as good as the support system around it, because and families and providers can focus on hands-on training and follow-up support, because it's not just about giving someone a device, it's helping them to use it confidently. So I think families and caregivers have a big role to play for supporting people to find where in their daily routines those kinds of technologies might help, and then support them to really integrate that tool, get used to using it, and create more opportunities for them to use the tool in practice so that that user becomes more fluent and more independent with their technology. But providing that wraparound support to really make that tech make sense in their life is so crucial.
Yeah. Yeah. The it makes me think about when I was teaching my Nana how to use screen readers and how to even access audiobooks.
Yeah.
And so it definitely is important to encourage people to, hey, did you remember that you could do it this way? And to provide those kinds of supports.
Yeah.
So how can policymakers and community members and leaders better support the widespread implementation of assistive technology?
So I think there are maybe three keys that I would zone in on, and one of them is expanding funding options. I think that assistive technology should be a covered necessity, not an out-of-pocket luxury. It has helped that there are so many mainstream devices now that can serve as assistive technology, but funding policy has really limited how much people can access them, right? So like an iPad is an incredible tool for accessibility, and they're like $400. But insurance companies and other funders insist that people buy single-use devices, right? They don't want to buy anybody toys. And those single-use devices cost 5 times as much. Like, that is not us being good stewards of funding. So just policy that, having a funding framework that is a little bit more practical in terms of how to access those kinds of technologies, I think is one. Investing in digital infrastructure. If we really want people to be able to use assistive technology, there has to be a basic infrastructure for mobile data, for Wi-Fi connectivity, for internet access. So for people who live in areas with poor connectivity, a lot of these tools are going to stay useless because they rely on, cloud sourced learning models and, internet access and things like that. So I think that investing in digital infrastructure is really a disability rights issue at this point with these tools coming out. And then I think we're coming a long way in this already, but continuing to mandate an expanded definition of accessibility in mainstream technology. I think the more inclusive technology is from the start, the less we have to retrofit solutions later.
Yeah. We just got a great question on the live. Jeff Banks is asking, are the corporations developing assistive technology having enough conversations with disabled people in designing and developing new technologies?
Absolutely not. I would argue that I think that we've come a long way, but I would argue that tech developers should be talking to more disabled people than non-disabled people, because all of the information that they gather and the user testing that they gather and feedback that they get from disabled people is going to cover what works for everybody else. I think that we need to move to a place where we start with disabled focus groups so that we can work from there and make tweaks. But if you build things for people with disabilities, you build them for everyone.
Yeah.
So absolutely not. Great question, Jeff. I think we've got a long way to go.
Yeah. So what advice, we've heard some advice already, but any additional advice would you give to home and community-based service providers who are looking to integrate more assistive tech into their services?
So I would say start small. Start with small, high impact changes. Like, there are simple mainstream smart home solutions like smart lights, smart plugs for commonly used devices, smart televisions that give somebody multiple control options, door latches that can be controlled from a device or by voice, and build from there. I think starting with mainstream tech that makes a house more usable by the person who lives there is a really good start, because there are already so many resources and support options for non-specialist devices. So more people can step in and troubleshoot if problems arise versus very specialist environmental controls.
Mhm.
I would also say partner with tech providers and disability organizations, because I think collaboration is really key to sustainably integrating technology. That ongoing kind of coaching model is really important. So those partnerships, I think, are vital. And I think the last is measure success beyond just strictly the functionality of the device. I think looking at quality of life, like you mentioned before, is somebody more independent? Are they more connected? Are they more engaged in their daily life than they were before? I think there is real fear, and it's valid, that assistive technology is used to decrease person-delivered support for people with complex needs. But really, we should be thinking about it in that assistive technology can change the quality of support that people are able to provide when some of that lower hanging fruit tasks like household management are automated or can be controlled by the user. So I think that those are big things to invest in.
Yeah. And so I know you've worked a lot, done a lot of your research in the UK. And I was really curious if there's any practices that you see happening in the UK that you think we can learn from and implement in the US.
I think that the UK has some more structured funding pathways for AT, especially through like social care grants and housing adaptation funding. The scope of allowable devices for spending is broader there than it is here. And I think that that's really helpful. Another thing that I know there is that assistive technology leadership is becoming an increasingly formalized role in a lot of care settings. So that means that there are dedicated professionals that are ensuring that technology is implemented effectively. They're giving ongoing support, which leads to better long-term outcomes because they've seen the benefit of integrating that into how they provide supports.
Yeah, that's great. So looking ahead, what trends in assistive tech do you think will be like the most transformative in the next 5-10 years?
So I think the AI-powered accessibility tools will get smarter and more intuitive, which is going to really reduce the need for multiple separate assistive devices. I think that people are going to be able to make a more cohesive ecosystem for their support, which is pretty awesome. I think that we are increasingly seeing universal design in mainstream tech. So I think we'll keep seeing more products that are designed to be accessible from the start, not just as an afterthought. And I think that we're continuing to see increased personalization and adaptability to the technology that's being produced even now. So there's technology that adjusts to individual needs in real time, which is another AI-powered tool. For example, it is used in some laptops, MacBooks, to help a user determine what kinds of accessibility features they need switched on and off to get the best use out of their tech, which means they can use it much more quickly rather than having to hunt through menus and find the right switches and things like that. So I think that increased kind of AI-powered adaptability is going to be really cool.
Cool. And so this is how we're going to end every episode of Accessible Futures Live with the question, what does an accessible future mean to you?
It means everything. I think an accessible future means choice and control, where disabled people have the same opportunities as everyone else to shape their lives into what they want it to be. I think it's a future where barriers are proactively removed. So not just in physical spaces, but in technologies, in policies, in mindsets. I think ultimately it's about creating a world that doesn't just accommodate disabled people, but it actively empowers them with more usable processes, spaces, and tools.
Love it. Thank you, Julie. That ends our discussion today. If we didn't get to a question from the audience, feel free to, Julie, let me know this was okay, to connect with Julie on LinkedIn, and she's happy to answer any questions you might have.
Totally. Yeah, totally. That'd be great.
And I hope everyone enjoyed this topic. I look forward to next week's episode. We're going to be featuring Carrie May, who is the global practice leader of pediatrics and women's health at Canon Design. And we're talking all about universal design in the built environment. So if you want to join us, we'll be streaming live on LinkedIn and YouTube at 1:30 Eastern next Tuesday, March 4th. So I hope to see you in the comments then. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.